Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Creative Lounge. This is episode 4, and I am so excited about tonight's guest, Terrell Lloyd, San Francisco 49er photographer and amazing photographer. Just fantastic stories about his career. Really excited to get talking to him. But before we do that, just remind you that this show is brought to you by Photorec.tv, the Photo Enthusiast Network, and McKay Photography Academy. And if you're watching this and you're not a Photo Enthusiast Network member, we're running an incredible special right now. Just ridiculously low price to join for your first year. You can find out everything you need to know at photorec.tv/join. And as I said, also partnering with McKay Photography Academy, and I have my good friends, David and Allie McKay, on tonight. And welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
And David, would you like to introduce our guest?
I will, but I do want to say, if you notice the background here, Allie, is your audio okay, hon? Just double checking again.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Most of you know, or a lot of you know, that we are on this crazy epic RV adventure, and we are in Arizona. We've been out for 2 days. We've had 2 flat tires in 2 days, but we are at our friends, the Popes. We went to the Vatican. And Pope Terry Pope is fixing our RV with a bunch of cool stuff right now, and I am in his theater room. And Allie, you're in another room in this beautiful home. So that's where we're at. We just want to throw a shout out to them. They're over in the other room watching on a big screen. And so anyway, yeah, so Terrell, it is so awesome, man, to have you here. You know, we've been friends, Allie and I, and you've been friends for many years, but we didn't really, see each other the last several years. And, see you on the sidelines with that ginormous Canon lens, and we just recently reconnected over this, and you've been so gracious to join us. We are super excited that you're here. It's not every day that we get somebody that's able to come on that has your caliber and background of what you do in your career, and it's really awesome. So welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I really appreciated the invite to your show and sit down and talk. We haven't seen each other in years. And so it's great to really reconnect and get back together, and glad both of you guys are feeling healthy and better and able to get out and about.
Yeah, man. 2 months ago today, I went into the hospital. So it's nice to be here and out traveling. Hey, I'm going to just read a little bit about you, your background here. Only the good stuff, man.
Okay.
And a little bit about Terrell. As Terrell Lloyd has been noted for his experience shooting professional and college sports. He is currently employed by the San Francisco 49ers as their full-time lead photographer and senior manager of the organization Photography Services. He has been with the organization since 1996 as a contract photographer, and now he is responsible for all of the team's photographic assignments. That's pretty amazing. Terrell Lloyd has always been an avid football fan, and in 1994, he was granted the opportunity to shoot on the sidelines in a San Francisco 49ers home game. And according to one of his clients, Terrell's sports photography really captures the essence of the game. Before that, since 1992, Terrell has provided professional photography services to individuals and organizations throughout the United States. He's based in the San Francisco Bay Area, near the high-tech capital of the world, Silicon Valley. He is known for his special combination of artistic vision, cutting-edge technology, and also for the past 12 years is the athletic sports photographer at San Jose State University. He has earned a number of championship rings for his work with San Jose State University, as well as the San Francisco 49ers for his work and services. He has also earned a number of rings. This caught me by surprise, I must say. He has earned a number of rings for his time bowling, not photographing bowling on the professional bowlers in leagues with several perfect 300 games and an 800 series as well. So with that, our good friend, photographer, and professional bowler, Terrell Lloyd is here.
That's a long list there. I mean, people say, what is it you haven't done? I mean, professional bowler, professional photographer, you worked in high tech. I mean, it's like, I wore many hats coming up, and I've always told people in my stories, I said, no matter what I was going to do, I was going to be good at it. And I've been fortunate enough to do things at a high level.
Yeah, man. And, Allie and I have followed your career. Obviously, prior to you being full-time with the Niners, you were doing contract work with the Niners. And we would go to PPA conventions and WPPI, and we'd both, Allie and I would speak there, and you'd speak there. And we ran around a few of the same circles. And then obviously, getting the gig full-time. So, why don't we just jump right into that, man? I know we're going to get into gear. Allie's got some questions on gear. We got some stuff that some really special topics that I know Toby wants to bring up that I think is really timely and relevant for today. But let's just talk about, beforehand, you were talking a little bit about your childhood dream, being a fan, and here you are. Let's talk about how you got your start in photography and then in with the Niners.
Wow. I told that story this morning to another group as well, but my story is kind of intriguing where, back in the day, I grew up in San Francisco in the Haight-Ashbury district. And if you're familiar with the Haight-Ashbury, it's so iconic for, the hippie movement back in the day. No, wasn't a hippie, but yes, sure. But I grew up, I used to have a paper route in the city, and I used to throw papers. Sundays, Mondays, I used to go to games at Kezar Stadium. And on Mondays, after the newspaper would come out after the games, it was so ironic, and I had a love for football. I would cut out pictures from the newspapers and make my own 49er albums and books. And so it's funny how so ironic that I've come full circle to now I run all the photography services for the 49ers, basically. In between that, not knowing I was going to be a photographer, I was one of the top junior bowlers growing up in San Francisco, making all-star teams, shooting 300 games, well known from San Francisco to LA. And I had a dream of going out on the professional bowlers tour and becoming the first minority to win a national title. No black bowler ever won. One made it on TV, but he didn't win. And I was headed on that track. And, unfortunately, at 19 years old, I'm going to college in the city, and I got sick. And the next thing I know, I was in the hospital for over a month and a half in intensive care. My lung had collapsed out of the blue. It kept going down. And so, I didn't finish college that year, and it took me about 8 months to get my health back. And so then I made a choice. I said, well, am I going to go back to school or am I going to go out on tour? And I decided to practice for a year and get my skills back in bowling and my strength and go out on the Pro Bowlers Tour full time. And so I did it for about 2.5 years full time. And unfortunately, physically after the operation, I wasn't the same. So I came home, made a little money, and I said, well, working in the bowling, I said, no, I got to do something different. Maybe I'll bowl professionally part time. And then I decided to get a job, and I got a job down in Silicon Valley at a telecommunications company because while I was in school, I was taking IT classes or computer science classes, and it worked out. That was like right along my career. And I also took photography in school, and that's what led me for the love of photography. But then circling back to the 49ers side, I was a season ticket holder since the 1980s when they won their first Super Bowl down to their 5th Super Bowl. And in 1994, I got a chance to get on the field. And this is how it ties in to how I really got started in the sports side of it, where me and my son, when he was younger, 3-4 years old, we used to go to a former player's restaurant and, eat hamburgers, French fries. And he would say, hey, you got to get on the field. You need more, more minority photographers on the field. And I said, well, I don't shoot for a magazine or newspaper. So he said, you got to call my guy. So I don't know his guy I got to call, but the next year came, he says, hey, you got to go on the field. So he hooked me up with the PR director at the time, and they got me a pass. And the next thing I know, I'm on the field shooting, and it was a funny story because, to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't shot sports since high school. And I'm out there just back in the film days. I'm shooting with 800 speed film and, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and it's like 70 degrees outside. And so, but the picture came out pretty good. And the PR director at the time said, he said, well, give me a call. I see what I could do. And I'm like, give you a call? I did, okay. So every week I would call him, and he would say it every week. So every week he said it. Every week I would call him. So by the time the end of the season came, I called him like I knew him. I said, hello, this is Terrell. He says, sorry, don't have anything, and hung up the phone on me, right?
Just hung up?
So could you imagine? It's like you get devastated, right? You're like, okay, what'd I do? And maybe I was a little, too aggressive. And so they went on to win the 94 Super Bowl. And the next year I said, well, what do I have to do? I wasn't going to get a job in a newspaper. I got my regular full-time job. So I got on with a monthly magazine. And so I put in for credentials. The Raiders moved back up here from LA. And next thing I know, I'm shooting the game every Sunday. And that's how I really got my start in the door with the Niners.
Wow. I want to take a jump back for just a second because we've got this great shot. This is from when you were still in the stands. Is that correct?
That was when I was still in the stands. I had an idea. Well, I had a premonition that Joe Montana, I mean, you can say what you want about other quarterbacks and this and that, which is, there's a lot of great quarterbacks in the league, but I still believe Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback ever to play, right? and yes, I'm biased on that one too as well. But, I take pictures from the stands, and he had just come off of his back surgery later on, and I just had a feeling that this was going to be his last game. And the 4 pitchers on each side of the 8x10 in the middle, he was warming up on the sidelines, and I'm shooting from my seats are 10 rows, corner end zone from the field, right? And so I got a 300 millimeter lens that I'm shooting with, and I put a converter on, so I shoot that, and then he's in the game, and he throws a touchdown to Brent Jones, and he does his signature point, and I captured that right in front of me in my angle of my seats. And I've always loved this image here of Joe Montana.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And he signed that personally for you, it looks like.
Yes. And it's funny because if you imagine that photo, I mean, I'm a fan in the stands. I wasn't with the Niners at the time and doing anything. And for Joe Montana, Ronnie Lott, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, all those guys that won Super Bowls and have played, and now that I know them now through alumni and so on and so forth, they treat me like I was around during all those Super Bowl years. I mean, just the nicest guys. Joe's one of the nicest guys. Ronnie Lott, Jerry. I mean, it's unbelievable, from those guys watching them and the way they treat me now as part of the organization. Yeah.
Man, awesome. Being a kid on a paper route.
Exactly.
Throwing papers with their pictures in it, creating those collages.
Right.
Fast forward, you're in the stands, and now these guys are your friends. That's cool, man.
And people ask me, "Hey, did you ever keep those books?" I was a kid at the time. You didn't think about it later on because you move around and you throw stuff away. And now I wish I would have kept that because it could have added to my story.
Oh man, that's awesome, man.
So that's how I got my start, basically.
Very cool.
Yeah. So you've moved up. I mean, you are now managing all aspects of the photography of the 49ers. And I'm just curious to tell us a little bit about what does that mean? I mean, clearly you are photographing on the sidelines, but there's more to it. Elaborate.
People think that, people always ask me, well, it's off season. What are you doing now? I'm taking pictures of the games. I said, so what I try to explain to them now is if you look at stadiums now, and when they build new stadiums, they're almost like convention centers, right? So at Levi Stadium, when they built that stadium in Silicon Valley, it's like we have about, what I want to say, nine club spaces, areas inside that stadium. So people come there to host events, host weddings, holiday parties, proms, so they use that stadium as basically, a venue, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at this picture here that I posted, this is what we did for COVID-19 to honor the first responders, the nurses, and we lit the stadium in blue, right?
Wow. Very cool.
And so
cool.
It was like, I had that's the first time I've been back in the stadium since we had to work from home and shelter in place, but it was great to go and capture these types of images here. So if you look at the tower that's on the left side, so we have suite towers there, we have club areas below. And then if you look at the field and you look at the stadium, we are hosting, international soccer, World Cup soccer, college bowl games. We had the World Series or Super Bowl of WWE, what a Monster Jam. We have concerts. So me and my team are responsible for capturing all that content, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So if you think about it, right, when we put in bids for soccer games or concerts, and you got to show what other concerts you had or what other events you had there, so someone has to do the photography for that as well. But when you think about photography services for the organization, it's like I'm responsible other than football operations, football game days. You think about partnerships, marketing, premium sales, our foundation, our community relations. We have a museum there, but we also have an education program there that the East DeBarlo York and the ownership established for the kids in the Bay Area, right? Where it's a STEM program, a STEAM program, which is, stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think it's about 60,000 students, if I'm correct on my numbers, but somewhere around there, that they bring to the school, to the stadium every year, right? Via buses and programs, and they come in for an educational lesson, right? And it's all paid for by the DeBartolo York family. And the schools don't have to pay anything. And it's like, they don't have to pay for the buses and so on and so forth. Yeah. And our foundation in community relations and giving back to the community is like, has to be bar none the top in the NFL as far as teams and what we do. Now, a lot of teams do a lot of things. And like I say, I'm going to tell you, I'm biased towards my team, but we do a lot in this. And it's really satisfying when you look at what we do as an organization out there in the community, and then capturing that to tell the story as well. Because, and Dave, we're storytellers. It's like, it's regardless of whatever we do, we're taking images to tell a story. Regardless if I'm on a football field, capturing the game from the start to the finish, you're telling a story. If it's, we're out there in the community and the players, with their foundations and giving back to the community and what we do, we're telling the story. And that's the thing too. When you see, the smiles and the faces and what we do and giving back, it's great. It's a great feeling. Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, so and part of you are not the only photographer. You are working with other photographers. I imagine.
Yes.
You're hiring, vetting these other people. Is that right?
Well, so let me explain how it works. So we still have our longtime team photographer that's been with the 49ers for 47 years.
47 years?
He goes back to the Kezar days. His name is Michael Segaris. He's a legend in his own right. He is still with the team. He's still contracted with the team. I came in full time just to run everything, and I have another full time person that works with me full time. Her name is Meg. She's been with the organization with me for almost 5 seasons now, if not longer. Got to get my count right. I also have another full time contract photographer. So there's another young lady named Kim that's been with me since Kezar for about 14, 15 years now. And, as I started moving up and I started grooming and teaching her, and then when I became full time, I was able to let her assume my contract role with the team because she has a full time job, right?
I got you
as well. But so she has a full time contract team as well. And then I have about 10 other, what I want to say, game day event photographers that work with me throughout the year, the season, and then they, basically per event, stuff like that.
Yeah,
gotcha.
That's cool. So folks in our audience who might be interested, what if they're not going to inundate you with portfolios tomorrow, but let's say you had an opening.
They might.
That's true. They might. Let's say you had an opening and someone was interested. What should they bring to you? What are you looking for in their portfolio or in their person that you think they're going to be able to do a good job?
Well, so first of all, I would say, because there's always opportunities. There may not be opportunities shooting on the field, shooting action, because what we do during a game, we got to get fan photos. We got to do, tailgate photos. I do suite photos. We have special events that go around in the stadium that, before the game. So it's kind of like what I look for is your knowledge of photography, how well you're knowledgeable about, ISOs, f-stop, shutter speed. Do you know how to use a flash? Can you expose a proper image? Do you know how to make adjustments, right? If you know those things, you will be able to take an excellent photo, right? Regardless if it's just people or groups of people or individual or moments, or, if it's like if I hired you to do fan shots or something like that, as long as you know how to make adjustments, that's the first thing I look for. Now it's like, but then again, I'm also willing to teach you as well. If I see, potential or I see certain things, you want to give people a chance. Because I'm going to tell you this here. Imagine this, like I said, I came off the Pro Bowlers tour, right? I have no experience whatsoever. And I'm going down to this company for an interview to work in their data center, right? And I meet with the director of the data center. And I just tell him my story. Here's my dream. I wanted to be a professional bowler. I got sick. I decided to hone my skills to go out on tour. But when I was in school, I was taking computer science classes because I had a fascination about computers, right? And I just told him a truthful story. And he saw something in me and he hired me. yeah, and with no experience, and they trained me, right? Because he saw something. And I ended up working for that company for 20 years and worked my way up to management and so on and so forth. So, I'm 23 years old, and imagine that, someone giving you an opportunity. Yeah. And then what are you going to do? You learn from what you've been taught. Wow. And you start giving other people opportunities. So when I became manager of the data center after 5 years, I hired people like what he hired me and brought them in from the ground level and trained them up so then they can move on. So I do the same thing in photography as well.
It's very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to just say over in the comments over here, we have one of our longtime clients, Angela Narducci. She said, Terrell photographed my company party at Levi Stadium. He was great to deal with. I had no idea I was speaking with someone famous. Isn't that nice that you were a nice guy?
Well, thank you. I mean, it's funny because, I really appreciate that. Thank you for that. But it's going back to when I got on the field, right? And I had only been on the field for a year plus, and I'm in my second season, not really shooting for the team, but just with this magazine. And one of the guys that's shooting the entertainment, he comes up to me. He says, "Hey, Terrell, how would you like to do what I'm doing? I'm getting kind of old. My knees are getting kind of bad. Come down to my office and I'll explain to you what I do." So his name was Doug. I never forget Doug. Doug was a great guy. He told me, well, I shoot the cheerleaders, dancing. I shoot the check presentations, the halftime show, the Frisbee dogs, the intros, whatever goes on, groups of people and things like that. And I said, okay. But then I said, Doug, why me? Why me out of all the people that come in here, that's been coming here? He said, you know what, Terrell, you come into the stadium with a smile on your face. You say hello to people. You're pleasant. I figured you'd be good for the job. And Doug hadn't seen one picture I'd taken. He didn't ask for any photos. He just hired me based on my personality and so on and so forth. Wow. And that's what I got with the team indirectly. So there's still layers to that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, Allie and I will talk about things like that just for all of you listening on the photography side out here in jobs. Allie and I and Toby, I think we've talked about this too, that, a lot of times I'm interviewing people and they don't know I'm interviewing them.
Right.
And what that means is I'm there's other photographers that I'm around that are great photographers. And in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, hey, you never know when we might need somebody. We never know. You just never know.
Right.
But the person I'm going to call is going to be the person that had time for me, that responded to my text on time, that did this, that did, you know what I mean? It's people that have a smile on their face. Yeah. Because being a people person is a huge aspect of what we do. And by being a people persons, we can actually help get that emotion in those stories, because we're feelers, right? And when we feel, then that helps us in our storytelling as well.
Two of my assistants back in the Candlestick days, I had another assistant I used to work with that was my right-hand man guy that unfortunately, a couple of years into him helping me on the field, he passed away, right? That devastated me for a while, because he would handle my gear for me. I knew where everything was. He did this, that. I worked with him in my corporate job. He had a passion for photography. And then the next year I was lost because my guy wasn't there. And my son helped me, senior year in high school, and which was great because I got to spend time with him as well. And then there's my two assistants during that time. The young lady I told you, Kim, that's been with me for 14 years. I met Kim in a camera store here in Palo Alto. I was coming in, she was going out, and Kim only stands about 4'7", so she's very short, right? And so the guys in the camera store say, "Hey, Terrell, how's it going?" And she stopped, and she turned around. She's like, "Oh, that's Terrell," right? Because she never met me. So she came and introduced herself to me, and we started talking, gave her my card. She didn't ask me for anything, right? Then I brought her on the next season. I say, "How would you like to help me on the sidelines if you're interested in learning and this and that?" And she's like, "Yeah." Now she's been with me ever since.
Wow.
One of the other guys that I picked up later on, he was Academy of Arts student, right? He sent me an email letter. I liked the letter. Took me a while to respond, but I kept it. For some reason, I kept it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I finally called him up, and he says, "Hey, I know if you ever need any help or assistant, blah, blah, blah. I go to Academy of Arts, this and that." I said, "Well, I don't have anything right now, but, just keep in touch with me. You never know what might happen." So he would call me once a month just to say hello. Didn't ask for anything. Didn't say, "Hey, do you need any help, or can I come on the field?" Never pretentious like that. Did that for about 4 or 5 months. And I had a event I was doing, a corporate event, right? And I said, hey, how would you like to help me on a corporate event? Came to help me. I like the kid. And then he's also been with me for 14 years out there as well. One of my game day event photographers as well.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So Terrell, I know everyone's just chomping at the bit to know about gear because we have some gearheads watching, and Dave has actually showed a picture of you holding your 400 millimeter at a game.
I think it's a 400 2.8. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
classes.
Well, here's the thing about gear. If you want to get into gear, so it's like I am. It's funny because I work with 5 cameras on the field, as you can see there. So that, as you see, as they're lined up, it's a 600, 400, 300, 7200, and I think that's a 2470 or 1635 I have on that lens there, right? But I also carry about a total with those lenses there about maybe 9-10 lenses, depending on what I could fit in my Thinktank modular system, right? And so the thing is, people say, why do you carry so many lenses? Why do you carry so many cameras? You know, how do you manage them all? Well, I got to have 2 assistants to help me carry those 3 big ones there from the 600 to the 300, of course, right? And it's just a matter, it's a matter of down in distance, depending on where we're at during game day, during whatever is happening during the game. But you got to remember when I told you earlier, I'll tell you about this story in a second, though, too. That was getting ready for the Super Bowl, and that was
wow.
There. But during game days, remember I told you I shoot for marketing, partnership, premium sales, community relations foundation. So we got to create marketing images during pregame. So I got to get huddle pictures. I got to get inside the huddle, large group pictures, large huddle shots from outside the huddle. So, you know, I have a 11 to 24. I have 1635, 2470. I'll have a 8 to 15 millimeter fisheye. I'll have a 1.4 converter that I can put on the 300 or the 400 if I want to get, you know, extra extension out of the lenses. And so, and it's a matter of to create a different look on the images, because sometimes I can take the fisheye inside the huddle and get that curved look inside the huddle. Or sometimes I'm inside the huddle with 11 to 24, and, you know, you get that perspective where it's like, man, you're right there close to them, you know, doing their rah-rah speech. Also during like their huddle picture, when they're getting ready to run their plays during pregame, I will get right in the middle of the huddle, right? They come in there and get a quarterback, you know, getting ready to call his play, and then I'll back out real quick. Now, remember this before the game, so it's all during practice. And so, you know, just to create a lot of different images here. If you look at the one where, go back down for number 10, our quarterback, Garoppolo. If you look at this one here, I'm low on the ground shooting from a low angle where one of our linebackers is getting ready to sack the quarterback, the Texans quarterback, you know, and then you're getting, you know, a celebration of our quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. So it's like, you know, either that shot with the 400, 600, or the 300, depending on where they're down the field, and just creating that storytelling and just passing lenses off and on, back and forth.
Yeah, you know what? You just mentioned this. I'm just going to jump in for a second.
Yeah,
I noticed on that shot. Yeah, you see the field, so you're down low, and that's one of the things that we tell our people on our tours all the time. It's move your feet. So it's also move your position. You know, we all stand, you know, 5.5 to 6 feet on average. You know, the average person, and shoot horizontal, and that's the how everybody sees. But by getting low, changing your position, changing lens perspective, all of that changes the impact of the photograph. So that's pretty cool that you're down low just to get a completely different perspective.
So like that down low, a lot of photographers get down, right, and they get on their stomach and they, you know, looking through the lens and this and that. Now I'll get down low, but what I use is I say, well, let me save my back where I don't have to lay flat on my stomach, right? I use a Canon angle finder, right? And put it on the camera, get down on my knees, squat. So I'm looking through the angle finder down, as I can see here, and the camera's literally on the ground, right? And then I can move left and right where I don't have to lay on the ground and bend my neck up to try to go like here, which I've done before, but I try to like minimize, you know, stress that's on my neck, right? So here's an example for you, right? And this is how I create, and I've talked about this before, how I would create 2, 3, 4, 5 images in one shot if I had to, right? So say we're coming down to score and we don't score. Now we got to kick a field goal and they're around the 25-yard line. So if I'm in the end zone, left or right of the goalpost, doesn't matter, right? And they're going to kick a field goal. I get up, I grab my 300, and my assistants know. I just say, wait here. I get up, grab the 300, right? I take my eyepiece off the camera, put it in my mouth. I grab the angle finder out of my Thinktank bag, put that on the camera while I'm running around the end zone, turn around. I get in between people, the people that are holding the pylons and this and that, so on and so forth, right? I'll get down real low on the ground. I will get a shot of the two teams lined up like this for a center page that the graphics department can use. And then I'll pan over to the holder and the kicker and get the kicker kicking the field goal all in one time.
All at one time. Yes.
Yeah.
Go. And without interrupting the game.
What's that?
Without getting in somebody's way, all these pylon holders and all, they have jobs to do. You can't get in their way. You can't.
And there's other photographers there too. So it's like a matter of you got to pick and choose where you're going to go, and then you just got to squeeze in. And if there's no room, I have to adjust where I'm going to go. But if I can't squeeze in, I'm not going to bump anybody out the way. That's just, I'm a courtesy kind of guy, and I'm like, if there's a spot, and photographers know that I'm the team guy, even if I'm on the road and this and that, they'll let you in a little bit because they're not getting. They say, oh, he's a team guy. Let's give me a little space, and then we're all good, and everybody gets a shot of what they're going to do. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So and I use I have 5 1DX Mark IIIs.
Okay.
I was on the 1DX2s. What I do is I sell. People say, well, you're a Canon Explorer of Light. They give you gear, this and that. No, they don't give you gear. It's like you get it. You get a discount, right? But yet we do have to pay for all our gear and this and that and so on and so forth. So, but there's other perks with what we do in speaking and so on and so forth. And so it works out well. So I'll sell my other gear, right? And then upgrade to the new models. But I've also had every flagship digital camera that Canon has come out with since digital as well. When they upgrade.
Since the D30.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's, I love lenses. I love cameras. I mean, I have an 85 1.4 lens. I have, the 20. I went to some prime lens recently too. This last season, I went with the 24 and 35 1.4 lens as well. I really like that for low light in the locker room. It works out excellent, better than like 2.8. So yeah, because sometimes the locker rooms and the hallways are really dark. And if you could shoot, shooting at like 1.4, 1.6, oh man, it makes a big difference than at 2.8 as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So Terrell, you talked a little bit about having people that carry your lenses for you. How amazing is that? I know some of our people don't even know that these lenses weigh between 30 and 40 pounds, some of them.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you manage that ergonomically? And because you only have one right shoulder, right?
Right. You get kind of used to it though. I mean, earlier days, like the 400 and the 300s were heavier, right? Mm-hmm. Then they come out with another model, they get a little lighter, right? But they're still heavy, right? Mm-hmm. Then recently, Canon has introduced their new 600 and 400 millimeter lens, version 3, which is literally, I could handhold that lens without the monopod, and it's just light as a feather. I think my 300 millimeter lens there is heavier than my 300. Heavier than my 400 and 600. So you could literally handhold those. So the way they've engineered the glass and the lens itself and the weight of it, it's much lighter than before. So
yeah, they've done a really nice job of taking the weight out.
My monopod that I use on the old lenses was heavier and thicker than I went with a lighter monopod on the new ones because it's just lighter. So if I went with my heavier monopod, it'd be heavier. Yeah. And I said, no, I got to go lighter. So I just went lighter on it.
Yeah. Very cool.
Let me just ask about because we're on Canon so much, and you're obviously a Canon guy, and so people, are not very aware that a lot of people probably are not very aware of what the Explorer Light, being the fact that you are one of Canon's top shooters. You know what I mean? You've been invited into their Explorer of Light. What is that? Just maybe so people just know a little bit about what that is.
So back in 2003, right? And as you're looking on the web, and you're looking at things, you're looking at, I'm speaking. Remember when I was speaking in Vegas and so on and so forth? You're looking for sponsorships, and I ran across this Explorer of Light program, right? And it said 60 of the most influential photographers in the world, right? You know, you go around the country, you're educating, you're teaching, you're inspiring, you're a master of your craft and what you do, right? And I said, wow, I want to become an Explorer of Light. Now, I mean, I'm a photographer. I do what I do. I'm an avid speaker. I'm getting write-ups in magazines. Am I, worthy or warranted enough to be an Explorer of Light? So I looked into it, and it's one of those programs that where it's like they want to know, is he well known, or is she well known? How well do they speak? What write-ups they had in the magazines. What are they doing currently? Can they draw an audience? Can they hold an audience? What is their style in shooting, right? Can they be inspirational? And it's not about pushing gear or selling gear. It's about really teaching and inspiring, others really. And so, I lobbied for 3 years of getting in the program. And, I mean, there was no application. There was no thing like, prerequisite, but it's like, people have to recommend you for the program and what he does and so on and so forth. So, and then in 2006, I got voted into the program and been teaching and speaking around the country ever since, Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
And doing, work like this. I mean, it's whoever this here was a project we did when we built the new stadium. And remember I told you the story earlier, how I cut pictures out of the paper and made my own paper books? Mm-hmm. I would have never imagined that I would have these banners on the side of our inaugural opening of Levi Stadium. It was so humbling and unreal. And I mean, I still drive to the stadium every year now, and just in awe that I'm here doing what I do.
Wow. How big were those banners? They must have been, what's that, 60 feet?
Oh yeah.
30 feet by 60 feet. It says there for our folks that might be on a smaller screen and can't see that.
Exactly. Yeah,
very large.
60 feet, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So who would ever thought? I mean, that's the thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were going to say something about the Super Bowl. I know we're going to move on to some other topics, but there was that shot, and you obviously love Thinktank. We all love Thinktank and Mindshift gear as well, because you mentioned them a number of times. But there was that shot preparing for the Super Bowl, and you were going to talk about that. Look at that, man.
So it's interesting
about the Super Bowl, man. You shot the Super Bowl, dude.
It's interesting on this one here, because the first Super Bowl when I went with them in 2012. I was still contracted, so I wasn't managing the whole crew of photographers. Now I had my small crew with me and this and that, and the old marketing department. We brought in a couple other people and this and that. Now this time everything falls on me. I got to do the team picture. I got to have setups for the computers. I got to have equipment for my guys that are coming in. So with all the Thinktank bags and I had to bring light stands for the team picture and everything like if I was going to be shooting it at home. So you have to be prepared. I had a checklist of all the things I needed from, lights, cameras, and I'm putting them in the bags here, lenses, extra lenses, cards, making sure that I have everything that I need for me, my staff of photographers, to cover the game, basically. And so this was all the lights. I mean, just, it was usually that the case here is what I normally take on game days when I travel. And then all of a sudden I got 5, 6, 7 other cases I gotta be responsible.
That's some serious gear. Yeah.
And thanks to Thinktank for helping me with the cases and organizing it. Because one thing as photographers, you want to be organized with what you do. And my thing is in my camera bags, if every slot has a space, and if like you're putting stuff back, it's like, okay, well, there's something missing. So it's kind of like you got to be organized going in and then organized coming back. So make sure you don't lose anything or leave anything or things like that. Yeah.
Does that all go on the team plane though? Because you don't have to.
You'll be amazed what fits under that belly of that team plane.
That's awesome.
And then you got to take off. It's like, man, how does they do that?
I don't know, man. That's awesome, man. Okay, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
And you travel with the team on the team plane, right? I mean, that's cool.
So I've only missed one game in 22. I say 22 years since I started traveling with them full time.
Wow.
And the one game that I missed was this is when I was still at Candlestick, and I was still doing corporate photography and contracted with the team. And I had a big corporate job in Venice, Italy. And I'd never been to Venice, and it was like okay, I got to miss a game. But it's funny. I used to tell people though, when I was doing my weddings and as I was coming up as a photographer and I would travel with the team, it's like I would turn down $2,000 and $3,000 weddings to shoot a game that I was only making $300-400 a game back then.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't about chasing money or having money. Yeah, you want to make money and this and that. And I'm turning down $2,000, $3,000 to not miss a game for the Niners. It was a matter of getting to a certain point where I'm at today.
Right. You paid your dues, so to speak, to get there. So that's awesome. Yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That's incredible.
Very cool.
Now losing the Super Bowl wasn't fun. I tell you that twice.
Well, that's what I was gonna. So rings, man. So, oh man, yeah. You and Toby were talking beforehand while we were trying to figure out we had some technical issues going on tonight, and I know you were talking about how close you've come because you get a ring, right? If you win the Super Bowl, you get a ring.
Right. Correct. So I have a vested interest, right? And the Story franchise has won 5 Super Bowls. We go back in 2012, and we got a slow start in New Orleans, right? Then the lights go out, right? After the first half, they run back 100-some+ yard kickoff return, right? And then it looked doom and gloom. The lights go out for about 15 minutes, right? Then lights come back on, and now we made our comeback, right? And so we're down with we're first and goal at the 7 with less than 2+ minutes to go, right? Frank Gore gets the ball, gets it down to the 5, and then we decided to pass the ball 3 times in a row, right? And I was telling Toby earlier where you envision yourself always getting a winning touchdown at a Super Bowl. And those 3 passes to Michael Crabtree was right on my side of the field, right in front of me, and it just didn't happen. And it's interesting when we ended up losing and the confetti comes out and the other team runs out and you see it and all the emotion just comes to you, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm packing up the gear in my back, that case, that black and red case there, and my photographers come by with the gear and they're looking at me like just looking up at me or whatever, and I couldn't say a word. I couldn't talk, right? And so that was a very emotional game. Then we go back to Super Bowl this last year, right? And we lose the game with less than 7 minutes to go, right? And I did something that I normally don't do, and I left the field. I left the field with a minute to go, right? And I didn't want to be on the field when all the confetti comes out. I couldn't visualize that again. So it was a tough one. But I tell you what, I ain't leaving the field no more. Because the next time we go back, we're winning. Exactly. So,
I think it's awesome. I don't know. I haven't talked to too many professional sports photographers, but it is clear that your heart is with this team, as well as photographing them. And I think that's really neat. Is that common, or is that a little less common with
I think I'm a little more intense.
Yeah.
Than,
I'm getting that vibe.
I mean, it's like I think because of my history though, right? If you think about it from a kid, to now. Yeah. And season ticket holder to running the organization. I mean, you got a lot of team photographers, a lot of people are happy to be with their teams and what they're doing, but they don't have it in there like I carry it differently, put it that way.
It's like in your DNA, man. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
That's a really special thing, and I'm sure that comes through in the images.
Yeah.
When you're really tied, your heart's really tied to something.
Right.
That's amazing.
But then I got to learn to channel that emotion differently though, because I think, the bigger the game, the bigger the moment, right? And I think I was good during the NFC divisional game and championship game as I'm preparing my other photographers that haven't gone through that, right? And I was telling them, I said, once we get to the playoffs, in that first division game, it's going to be a different feeling out on that field, right? So I'm prepping them, getting their mind right?
You're the coach. You're
right.
coaching your team. Yeah.
Right. So then I said, okay, wait for the NFC championship game. I said, it's another level, right? And we had meetings of what we're going to do after the game. Who's going to cover what? When we run out on the field, who's going to do this? I mean, we had the game plan, right? Now, we had a meeting for the Super Bowl too, but now the intensity level goes up, right? That was at the NFC championship game. After that was my crew and brought in few more photographers to help out during that time. And that was if you could have seen the smile on my face, I think I went to sleep and woke up with that same smile on my face. and so, and even at the Super Bowl, now your intensity goes up even more. So it was like, I think I needed somebody to tell me to relax a little bit because I was too intense that game. Because I really thought we were going to win. I really did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Toby, I know that we want to get into definitely want to get into some other topics, but before we do, because I want to make sure we have ample time there. Did you want to share or ask Toby anything about, or I guess I just can, in regards to your technique as far as, one of the things I think about is, different people have different ways they shoot. Full manual. Some people are shooting, when things are constantly changing, they're on a priority mode.
Right.
But also, I was thinking about what you do. You have to anticipate, right. You've got to develop, I guess, a sixth sense.
Yeah.
On what's about to happen, man. Like, you're in the end zone. What are they going to do? They're going to pass. They're going to hit, and you don't know, right? You don't have something in your ear saying what play is coming down the line.
Exactly. So it's like myself, I got to be an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. I got to understand the tendencies of what the Niners are going to do, as well. I mean, it's like I tell people when I'm teaching sports, it's like you got to understand the sport that you're shooting, what their tendencies are, what they're going to do. Like even at San Jose State, I had to learn how to shoot gymnastics. I had to learn how to shoot water polo. I mean, what are they doing? How they pass the ball? Where's the ball going? So on and so forth. Like, in sports, it's like even with the Niners, you have to have a vision and you have to know where everything is going to go on the direction that you're going to go. And you're guessing, just like how everybody else is guessing, right? And so it develops over years of practice and practice and practice. I mean, it's just like when, new photographers coming up, right? To get a camera, you got to go out and shoot. You got to go out and practice. You got to go, out and understand the camera and what you're doing, right? And the same thing with football, where it's like, if they're on offense, right? I'm watching to see, okay, do they got 4 wide receivers in, or do they got 2 tight end set? They got 1 running back in the backfield, or 3 wide receivers on one side. What down is it? All these things are playing in my mind of what they're going to do. Are they going to run, or are they going to pass, right? Are we a passing team or we're a running team, right? And so now it's like I start off with the quarterback, right? And what he's going to do. But it all depends on if I got to get a shot of the lineman. We have to get shots of everybody that's on the field, from the center to the guards to the tackles, right? So now I'm watching the tackle. I may get a shot of him, a few shots, and then I pan over to the quarterback. Is he going back to pass, or is he going to hand off to the running back? Now, if he goes back to pass, remember I told you, do you got 2 wide receivers on one side or whatever? Now I know where they are at. If he goes back to pass and he looks one way, right? Now I'm watching his eyes, and if he turns to go the other way, then I pan that way, right? So it's kind of like you're just moving along with the flow, and you're watching the game, even though it's fast, right? But you got to slow it down in your mind, right?
Wow.
Which is hard, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you guess wrong, and sometimes you guess right, right?
Yeah.
One thing about me also is lighting for me, right? And what I did from when I took a portrait class, right? And in the Bay Area here, I felt that she was one of the best portrait photographers I studied under during my time coming up. And her name was Lori Rose, right?
Oh, yeah.
And a week-long class. And she taught me direction of light, basically, right? And how if it's an overcast day, the sky's not with a big soft box and this and that, but, depending on where you're at, is the light coming off the side of a building, a wall here, where's the direction is coming from, if it's a sunny day, so on and so forth, right? So I took that class, and I said, she sent us out on an assignment with a Polaroid camera, right? And she's no instructions, team up with another photographer and go out and take a portrait. And we come back with the portrait, right? Now she started teaching the class, right? And so the goal was at the end of the class, you go out and take another portrait from what you learned. And my goal was to be the best portrait from the class, right? And at the end of the day, end of the week, I ended up tying with someone for the best portrait, right? Because she couldn't choose between the two, and I tied. So I achieved my goal, right? I don't care if it's a tie or a win, I achieved the goal, right? So I applied that to when I shoot sports. Where is the direction of light coming from for me to position on the field if they're coming to me on a sunny day? Overcast day, you're okay. Rainy day, you're okay. Night game like here, you're okay, right? So give you an example. on like if the field is halfway in shade, right? And it's like, where are you going to shoot from? Are you going to shoot from the shady side and it's backlit? Well, how are you going to expose for the shade and the sun if they're coming in the shade, but it's sunny in the background, right? Well, why don't I move to where the right side into the sun, shoot from the sun to the shade area? So now I will meter for the sun and then make adjustments for the shade. So say, for example, and Dave, you asked me, am I aperture priority, shutter priority, manual? All depends on the day. Okay. So on a sunny day, I'm shooting aperture priority, right? So now if I'm at 200 ISO, nice sunny day, and I'm in the sun, half the field is in the shade, right? So if I'm at 200 ISO at 3.5, 2.8, whatever aperture I'm gonna shoot at the time, right? And I'm shooting at 3,000 of a second. It meters at 3,000 of a second, right? But now if I pan over to the shaded area at 200 ISO at 3.5, I'm at like maybe 2/50th of a second.
Too slow.
Right? Too slow. So what I'll do, I'll increase my ISO up to about maybe even 640, right? Mm-hmm. And then if I pan over to the shade and meter real quick before the play starts, and say if I'm at 1,000 of a second or 12/50th, okay, now I'm good. Because now if I'm shooting at 5 or 6 thousandths of a second in the sun and they run over into the shaded area, I still got a fast enough shutter speed to freeze the action where it's not blurry or out of soft or certain things like that. So sometimes I'll play the edge of that shade with the sun and the shade and balance it that way, right? So basically I'm an aperture priority guy on a sunny day. On a cloudy day or night game or in a dome, I shoot on manual. It all depends on how intense the lights are. I may be at 2,500 ISO at 3.5 at 2,000th of a second or 1,600th of a second, but now with the newer cameras and the higher ISOs, I'm not afraid to go to 8,000 ISO or 10,000 ISO, right? It's amazing what the 1DX Mark IIIs can do now, and it's based on the environment where you're at, right? And sometimes I'll even shoot in what I call auto ISO, where, and I could do that with the sun in the shade, where I'll say, okay, I want to shoot at 2,000th of a second, at 3.5 or 3.2, at so 2,000 seconds, 3.5, 3.2, and let the camera pick the ISO for that shutter speed and aperture, right? And I'll do that as well. So it's a mixture, and it's a combination.
See, and that when we teach full manual, and then when we talk about priority modes with people, we're totally okay with priority modes. A lot of times we've come across, a lot of our clients where they have a priority mode, but they rely on it and they don't pay attention to the other settings. And while you're talking about that, just want to make that real clear real quick, is that, you might be shooting aperture priority, but you are still scanning that shutter to see what it's doing. So and that's your full manual, but you're letting the camera handle a little bit of that work for you. And that's one of the things that we always tell people. If you're going to shoot priority, that's totally cool, but just make sure you learn manual so you understand what the camera's doing.
Like an answer to Ali's question earlier on about, or I think it was Toby, I can't remember where, what am I looking for in a photographer if they want to come work for me? It's like understanding ISOs, f-stops, and shutter speed, right? If you know how to balance that, I could walk into a room or an event center or doing a corporate party and say, you want in your mind to know, you look at the lighting and you got to have a starting point of what you're going to do, especially when you're going on manual, right? You can't shoot, in priority mode or aperture priority because it doesn't work well because of the lighting, right? And so if you're going to shoot without a flash, depending on if it's enough light, if it's not enough light, you got to do a party with people, light them up with flash, know how you want to drag the shutter depending on what you want to do. But yet, if you're shooting a press conference, right, and you have TV lights, right, it's like, okay, what ISO are you going to start at and what shutter speed you're going to shoot fast enough to where you're going to stop them, even if they're moving, because they're not running, they're just moving their head going back and forth, so on and so forth, right? But then and I say, understand your auto exposures. Sometimes I'll ask the lighting guys, hey, what is your Kelvin settings on the light? They may say it's daylight balance at 5,500 Kelvin. I put my camera at 5,500. Right. And now it's balanced to their lights, to people on the podium. And then you're going to get, a nice tone on the skin tones because you're balancing the light that the person is speaking on the podium for the lights that they have back there. Sometimes you may not know, it's like, but yet, in the manual, or look up Kelvin settings. Look at what is this for daylight balance, tungsten, fluorescent, shade, it's like they have those numbers, those variables. And like, if you're in a situation, say, okay, if I'm in the shade and it's at X, Kelvin setting, try that, look at the back of the camera and say, okay, I like the way I look. Because if you go to auto, it may look a little green or blue, depending, because you're in the shade, right? So, it's just understanding those numbers and what the camera does, basically.
Yeah.
And you gotta study it all the time. I mean, I tell people in my stand-ups, it's like, how many people get a brand new camera, take it out the box, and just start shooting without reading the manual? Well, you got to read the manual, right? You got to look at what the settings for, because the settings are there for a reason, right? And you tweak the settings to your likings, or find out what other photographers' settings are using for that camera, and then go from there. So I want to do a segment on how I set up my 1DX Mark IIIs and 2s, so photographers could try those settings. I had a photographer in Tampa. He shoots the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? He's a freelance photographer. He called me up one day. He said, Terrell, hey man, I'm having troubles with the 1DX Mark II with my settings and so on and so forth. I heard that, you tweak your camera a lot, this and that. So I emailed him my settings for his camera, for him to preload into his camera. We went to play Tampa Bay. He hooked up with me. He says, Terrell, I owe you dinner. He says, my number of images on the quality went up 50% more. The settings that you gave me,
that's dramatic,
compared to what I was doing before. And it was just a matter of, him understanding and learning what's what. Right.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool. Before we move off gear, and we were about to, but I'm just curious, you said you've owned every flagship Canon camera since they've launched.
Yeah. We
have this flagship mirrorless coming, the R5, which, your Canon Explorer of Light, I imagine a few more details than us regular folks do. Do you see that fitting into your bag at some point, and how?
So, I haven't had a chance to play with the R5 yet. And I remember when we were talking about it, they didn't even give us explorers, a lot of information on it early on, right? We just knew it was coming. And then I'm supposed to get a sample one, I don't know how shortly or soon, to try out, but it's like I'm definitely been waiting for this mirrorless camera, put it that way, right? And after looking at the technology that's in the 1DX Mark III, that also will be in the mirrorless as well, right? And then with their video, I don't do a lot of video, but like with their video capabilities and that camera, they're really excited. I'm really excited to try it out, right? So I said earlier in one of my sessions where I'm like a carpenter with his tools, right? It's like, okay, if there's a new tool that comes out, will it fit into the realm of like how I work? How can I use this tool for what I'm doing? Now, I may not be able to use it for everything that I do, but what can I use it for? So you play with it, so on and so forth. I even told a story where I'm thinking, because in live view and the autofocus tracking, right, on the people tracking, right, I was even thinking about when I'm kneeling down on the field, is like putting it on a little mini tripod, right? Pointed at the pylon somewhere at a certain focal length, right? And if anything comes within that area of that pylon, because if I'm shooting with the 7200 2470 or whatever, right, it's like have a trigger on my camera that's firing the camera that's on like the R5. If they come within that zone and the focusing picks them up, oh yeah. It's like I'm getting two shots in one time, maybe a wide at the pylon and a tight one where I'm at. And those are the type of things that I try to look at differently. Because I tell my photographers every year, I said, we got to be better than what we were last year. I said, I'm only as good as my last picture I took yesterday, right? I said, even though I've been with the Niners for 24 years, 25 years, right? It's like, I can sit back and relax, say, I made it, this and that. No, you still got to stay on top of your game and what you're doing. And you got to be innovative and creative and looking at different ways on how you can shoot, right? I challenge my photographers that. It's like, okay, Kim, Meg, Greg, Ben, how are you going to shoot this year? How are you going to look at it differently? Now, we're still going to get some of the same things, but then I want you to get creative. So you got to challenge them, because I get challenged, right? And so, and I want to be better every year. I want to be better than what I was last year.
Dude, that's inspiring, man. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, don't ever think, once you think you made it, somebody's going to pass you by, right? And they're gonna, it's a matter of just staying on top of everything and what you do. Even like with what you guys do, with your traveling, what you guys doing there. I mean, it's like I may have to go on one of those trips with you guys next time.
Hey man,
that'd be awesome.
My head's always thinking, dude. I'm already thinking about a sports workshop featuring you, man. We got to put this on.
So another quick story, real quick, before we guys, I did a program for Canon and for a group of high school photographers, and we went up to Bishop, California. Right now, I didn't know where Bishop was and this and that. I took a flight up to Reno, drove 3 hours to get there, and I'm going to teach a day-long class to these students, right, in lighting and composition and so on and so forth, right? So we're going to go to a place called Bodie Ghost Town. Never been there, right? So
we will be.
so the kids were so excited to meet me and so on and so forth. We had barbecue that night. I got in, and me and my buddy helped me out as being an assistant, right? So now you got your game plan. You know what you're going to do. You got your lights, you got this, that, so on and so forth, right? So now we're driving up back to Bodie, which is an hour and a half from Bishop, right? And the weather was bad, and it started snowing, right? And we're going up the summit here. Started snowing because we're on the other side of Yosemite. So it's like, so we're on radios and we're following. They got a couple of vans, and so the teacher says, "Hey," to the Canon rep, said, "Hey, I don't think this is going to work. The snow is too bad. This and that." He said, "I think we need to turn around," right? So we turn around, and we're coming back down the summit, and my girl Jessica from Canon says, "Hey, if the kids want to get out on the side and take some pictures in the snow because they've never been in the snow, let's do that," right? So we pull in somewhere off to the side with the snow. We get out, right? I get out of the car. My girl Jessica from Canon says, "Terrell, okay, so what are we going to do?" And I'm like, okay, right, well, this is not Bodie and it's snowing out here. To myself. Now I'm just thinking in my head, and they're looking at me, right? And the kids are getting out. So I said to my buddy Greg, I say, "Okay, grab a flash, grab a softbox, a light stand, my remote, and the camera, and this and that." So we go out into this area. The snow is coming down, flurries, right? There's snow everywhere. You got some, tree woods over here, this and that. And so the kids there standing and looking at me. I say, "Okay, I tell you what we're going to do is we're going to do some portraits in the snow." Now I made all this stuff up on the fly, right? I said, some we're going to shoot. I said, "I want you to look out here. There's certain areas where I went on, and I was like, boom, see that over here? Look at this here. You could take a person over here. You could do this. Look at where the lighting's coming. Look at the snowflakes coming down. We're going to do something with the flash or without the flash and this and that." And they were amazed. I was amazed because and so, we did that. They created these students was unbelievable. So we were able to do that. We made it over to Bodie. It was freezing. We got some pictures. Then we went out to Mono Lake, did some pictures down there. And that was one of the best classes I ever taught. It was just
very cool.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah. Nice.
Awesome.
Well, it's clear your heart and soul is with this team, and I just want to talk a little bit about both current events and the fact that we look back a few years and the 49ers were involved in some controversy because of Colin Kaepernick and his decision to kneel. You were photographing and with the team at that time. We've got one of your shots of him kneeling during the anthem here. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you. Oops, wrong thing. Your thoughts at the time. About both him as a human, what he was going through and taking this stand, and also what it meant for the team. And I do realize that you are still employed by the 49ers, so you might have to be careful in what you say.
Oh no, it's good, but it's like it was just, it was an interesting time, put it that way, right?
Yeah.
And definitely as a photojournalist, you capture everything, and and as it was developing, it was it was a tough time because you're kind of divided a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look at it in today, right, it's like from today and what's going on and what happened, with George Floyd, it kind of like polarized what the message was. It wasn't about the flag, it wasn't about the military, it wasn't about this and that, so on and so forth. So it's kind of like it was one of those things where you were part of. I got some images to showcase it a little bit, for my archive for later on down the line, like now or whatever we do later on. But it was very controversial back then.
Yeah. I'll say it from my perspective. I think he was very nicely exercising his First Amendment.
Yeah.
And I know that really upset some people, but it was peaceful. And yeah, so it's just very, very interesting.
I mean, but when you look at like race relations in the country and this and that, and it's like it's definitely opened up Pandora's box in a lot of things, right? It's polarized a lot of stuff in this and that. And being African American, you know, it's kind of like, you know, things that I've gone through where I've been targeted before, I've been followed by the police before, you know, where I'd be with my friends and they, you know, it's like all of a sudden they're following me for no reason, stuff like that. You know, my son, you know, while he was in college, he got stopped in college on campus, you know, and they, he's a college student and they, you know, had their guns drawn on him, you know, and so on and so forth. So it's like when you look at things in today, when you can see it, when you got video and you got cameras and you have this, it's like there's no hiding from it, really, to be honest. So it's kind of like, you know, you got to be accountable for what you do. And it's a matter of how, I mean, I usually don't, you know, I don't get into debates on Twitter or Facebook or Target. I mean, if you follow me on Facebook, you know, or Twitter, Instagram, what you see is pictures. And I try to teach through my photography and inspire that way. I don't get into politics or this, that, so on and so forth. But, you know, this whole controversy has sparked a whole big different debate, really. Mm-hmm. And it's exposed a lot of people. And it's kind of like, you know, it's like, I think there's more good cops out there than bad cops. I do, because I know a lot of police officers, you know, from Santa Clara, San Francisco, you know, some friends of mine, right? Sure. And so it's a matter of, it's like, how does it get controlled? I mean, it's like a lot of people are mad, they're upset, and rightfully so, I think. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I mean, and you know, and Terrell, you know, you and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago when we were discussing doing this, and you know, I told you flat out then that I was one of the guys back in 2016 was like, you know, what's this guy doing? Like, you know, I mean, like, and now I'm out photographing some of the BLM rallies, you know, but it was interesting because so much has happened, and I knew that you were around photographing back then, you know, and obviously, and all that. And I think it's one of those things too, like just to show that, you know, you take the images, whether you can use those images at that point in time or not. You said it earlier in the broadcast, we're storytellers.
Yeah.
And agree or disagree or whatever, you are telling a story, and that was a story to be had, which is interesting to see now 4 years later. He's back in the spotlight. I'm sure you know him well, and you know who he is as a person. And here it is, and now he's back in the spotlight, and now your images, it's like, wow, okay. Yeah. And who knows what the future is going to hold with some of those images for the team as well as civil rights. So, you know, I applaud you for that. And I know, you know, you being an African-American, you know, a professional, you know, like, I mean, maybe it's just the circles I run in, but I don't know that many Black people that are photographers, you know, like, I mean, like when we went to WPPI or PPA, I mean, obviously there's some, but you know, you've had to, you know, you've worked your way and you've done it because you worked hard, period. Not because I didn't, but you've worked hard. But I just want to applaud you for doing what you've been doing and where you've gotten in your career. It's pretty awesome. And you know,
it's been fun. I mean, you know, it's been, you know, it's been challenging as well, you know, and it's like, you know, it's, you just, you know, navigate your way through it, put it that way, right? You know, and you just continue to be yourself, and you continue to be, like I want to say, true to yourself, true to you, and the way you are and your personality and stuff like that. You know, it's like, you know, everybody's not going to like you for whatever reason, right? I got this 90-10 rule, I say, right? I say, you know, I may do that 95-5, but I may move it that way. So 90% of the people I come in contact with are going to love Terrell Lloyd. They're going to like Terrell Lloyd this time. But there's going to be a small percentage that may not like me for whatever reason. It could be because of what I do. You know, it could be because of the car I drive. It could be, you know, the way I dress nice or do what I do here. Or it could just be, you know, overall nice guy, you know, and some people are not nice people, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I don't know, some people are not going to change, but yet it's like, how do you just navigate your way through it, though? You know, stop worrying about the little things. So that's like, you know, sometimes I worry about the people that don't like me, and I should be worrying about the people that do like me and that care about me and stuff like that.
Oh, yes.
You know, can't get a post on me on their IG channel, Instagram channel, and a lot of comments came back was very positive. For some people that I know, some people I didn't know. You know, it was pretty heartfelt when I started reading the comments, and you know, and then I started replying back to the comments to the people, you know, and making it, try to make it unique to their comment that they posted about me, right? Because if they took the time to write it, I think I could take the time to reply back to it and thank them for that, right? You know, it's you know, that's what you got to do sometimes, right? But you know, we wondered when we were going to post that and how we did it, how will it be received by, you know, the masses and some people, because they say, you know, because you're saying the first, you know, minority photographer as a Canon Explorer of Light, you know, and it's like, you know, it was, you know, you open yourself up, but it was like Canon was liking the things that came back and this and that, so on and so forth, which was good. So, you know, how do we be inclusive later on down the line going forward as well?
I see.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, we've got some questions. Toby, did you want to pull up those questions, or?
Yep, I've got them right here.
Okay.
We've got a handful of great questions.
All right, I'm getting ready.
I think you kind of touched on this, but let's review, because I think it's great. How many in a general game? How many photographers are you supervising? How many photographers are you working with?
Oh, so in my crew is about 12 photographers or 13, depending on the game and what we have to do, or if marketing or partnerships need more photographers to cover like suites or certain special things that are going on. But it's usually around anywhere from around 12 to 14 photographers during that day. Yeah. Some people always ask me sometimes, is like, how many images you guys shoot total for a game?
Yeah,
it could be anywhere from 25,000 to 28,000 images on a game. And I told my assistant that Meg that tallies all the images and try to organize them after the game. I said, man, 28,000, I know is that many. She said, well, Terrell, you take 9,000 of them, half the time. So it's like, you know, yeah. So yeah,
that was 1DXs, man. Yeah.
And so.
This is from Tom, and this is a good follow-up question here. So you after a game, you got 28,000 photos. Who is culling and doing this post-production?
That is my fellow coworker, Meg Williams, and she does that after the games, right? But what I do during the games, even though we're shooting wirelessly, so we shoot wirelessly during the games. So that's one of the big things when we moved into Levi Stadium is like, how can we get content quicker, right?
You mean as you're taking the pictures, they're flying to a main computer somewhere? Yeah,
but not all of them though. No. So we're only pushing select ones, you know, as you know, games going touchdown, sacks, you know, key players, this and that, so on and so forth, right? But during the game, well, I have a pre-photo editor that will come get cards throughout the game and starts copying those images to get them organized in the folders that we have designated for them. Like, you know, we have a marketing folder, you know, a pre-game, intro folder. I mean, it's like our folder structure. I should give you a copy on that so you can see it. But it's anywhere from like 25 different folders to manage all the photos, right? So we can have some type of organization. Yeah. So once we have that organized, and then if you look at like all the game action, there may be anywhere from, you know, 9,000 not that, but it's like 9 to 10, 12,000 game action photos that we have to break down to like highlights. So you got to go through those pretty quick. You're just going through and, you know, and you sort them by timestamp. And when the timestamp off, it messes you up though, let me tell you. But yeah, and then you just tagging, and then we create a folder of highlights. So it's, and if you look at it from a timing standpoint, I get to the game, I get to the stadium at 7:30 in the morning. And we don't leave in the games that are 1 o'clock. We don't leave until sometimes 8, 9, 9:30, depending on, you know, what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a long
so
day.
It's a long day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every week.
Every game.
This is so you mentioned time stamping. I know back in the wedding days, Allie, remember we go 3, 2, 1 and we'd time stamp together so that when we put everything in, it all lined up. Do you do that with your team? Yeah,
we do that with the team. But the problem is, here's the problem though, right? If we got 6 shooters that are shooting on the field, if I'm shooting in the locker room, they're shooting out on the field, right? Another person's shooting over here and shooting here. When you put that all together, they're still all over the place. Right? But yeah, it's nuts. Yeah. So what we've done was, it's like sometimes we'll drop them in our separate folders and then start moving around as well.
And then during the game, you literally push something to go wirelessly somewhere if you need it to go to whatever situation.
Right, so it goes up to a photo shelter services that we use as well. And everything's pushed there. So whoever's on web, design, social, they could see that in real time. And then they can start pumping them out to the channels and so on and so forth. So it's the same thing when we're on the road. I shoot wireless on the road when it worked with my Verizon packs that I have, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I got a pretty neat setup.
That's cool. And are you shooting RAW, JPEG, both?
So I am a JPEG shooter. For 30,000, 28,000 images, you're going to be shooting JPEG. Because if we shot RAW and trying to process 28,000 images, it'll never get done, right? And plus the storage wise. So the cameras nowadays process a JPEG file really well, right? And so, I've taken some of my JPEGs and there's been banners up in the concourse area that if you can expose an image right, it can print right, and the cameras, like I say, has gotten better. And so, but now I would shoot RAW only when I have to shoot RAW. It all depends on what we're going to do with the images. If they want to do something more of a banner and a specific type of game action stuff, then I'll shoot RAW personally myself, but then all my other photographers will be shooting JPEG. Yeah, things like that.
And your portrait images that you do of the players or portraits in general, you're probably shooting those on RAW as well. And but you're not dealing with 28,000 images, and trying to just immediately get those out to a news source. Right. So
like when we have our media data, we talk about that we do where we shoot every player in uniform, different poses, different styles. Yeah, I'll shoot RAW and JPEG on that so I can have both files.
Gotcha.
Okay. And so that was Janelle who wanted to know the RAW plus JPEG. Christian wants to know, and this kind of ties into that as well, how important is it to get the team colors consistent or accurate in every shot?
So that's why all of my photographers are shooting Canon, right? Yeah. And the thing is, it's like if you're not a Canon shooter, you can't shoot with me. But because it's like, I don't want to say it like that, but it's like then you have to use some cameras that are Canon, but the files look the same, right? Because if the file colors look different, if you're shooting Nikon, Sony, Fuji, whatever preference camera you have, all the files are going to look, the colors are going to shift just a little bit. So if we're all in Canon, everything looks similar to the same, right? Yeah. But then again, like I say, it's like if our cameras are set with the same settings, which all my people have, we're going to be real close. You can't have one camera set a different way and then another camera set another way. And it's like, and then the colors shift and then they're all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Janelle also wants to know, how many miles do you think you run on the sideline on a year before you were describing about hustling around the end zone?
On a year? Well, let's see. So sometimes I look at the steps that I take on game day, right? And it could be anywhere from just for that day could be like 18,000 steps, but I haven't never converted that to miles, but yet I'm getting a lot in. And you got to remember too, it's like I do college football or college sports as well. So I'm doing a college game on a Saturday and a pro game on a Sunday as well. So sometimes I'll travel with San Jose State on a Friday, do a game on Saturday, fly back with them that Saturday night, then do a game on Sunday, and that's each week. So basically, if you look at the 20-game season, an NFL game, and a 12-game season college, that's 32 games that, I'm covering, during the year, running around.
Wow. You might be burning more calories than the players.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is true.
Yeah. You're definitely keeping yourself in shape. Earlier, you referenced the 600 being featherweight now, which I might not. I know it's lighter, but I don't know if I'd consider it featherweight.
Yeah, you can. Believe me. Compared to like if I put the version 2 600 in your hand, right, and you lift it up, you say, "Oh man, this is heavy," and then you lift up the version 3 600. And you say, "Oh man, now I definitely." It's a big difference.
Yeah, I was at the Canon launch party for the EOS R, the R, the mirrorless. Right. And one evening on our tables, they had this little like gift bag. It was stuck full of random stuff, and where it was some coffee and some other things. And during the presentation, they're like, "Hey guys, lift this bag up. That's about 2.5 pounds. That's how much we took out of version 2 to version 3." It was a neat little way to kind of demonstrate the difference. Sure. But I'm just saying. I don't have the same you do. So I think it's still a heavy lens for me.
Yeah. After carrying lenses for 27 years, you like, oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. And Roy did the conversion for us and says that's about 8.5 miles. So 8.5 miles per game.
Wow.
Okay. There
Nice.
you go.
There you go.
Wow.
Nice.
Before we move on,
I'm like a hamster around the field.
Yeah.
Before we move on, our sons submitted a question each.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So Luke wants to know, have you had any memorable interactions with star players from other teams?
Interactions with star players. Not too much because they don't. I mean, unless there were some of our players that went to other teams, but yet, I mean, I talked to Russell Wilson one time before because he took a picture with somebody, wanted to make sure he had that photo. Never had any interaction like with Tom Brady, really. Who else? I've talked to Brett Favre a little bit after, his career because he was at Levi Stadium one time. I pick and choose a little bit, when to speak or when to say something or so on and so forth. I know, big fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers coach. I went over and introduced myself to him just out the blue, just to say hello, stuff like that, just to give respect, things like that, so on and so forth. But yeah.
Cool. And Taylor wants to know, how do you anticipate the NFL season happening, the COVID stuff? And
I get that question asked a lot. And I have no idea. I mean, I watch the news, I see what we haven't got too much word yet on how it's going to work. We've been working from home since March 16th and, just waiting for, the NFL and the 49ers to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what you're able to do. Here's how it's going to go. Everything go well. So that's still I won't really know anything until mid-July, to be honest.
Well, and it varies, right? Because state to state, like California, obviously is so much different than Texas. So, obviously the NBA is looking at different options, but
I'm just praying, hopefully, magically, maybe by August or September, they have a vaccine that
we're praying that too, man.
They can certify. That's my next wish list. So I got to get back on the field. It's like
yeah.
We need to bring this country back together somehow.
Yeah. Man, that's the
truth. And get people back to work and freelance photographers and the photographers that are making a living, trying to make a living. I mean, it's just not only me. I'm pretty fortunate right now, but it's like there's a lot of people that a lot of my peers, a lot of people that I know that are either contributing photographers or when they don't work, they don't get paid, and it's it affects a lot of people. So yeah.
Hey, we're gonna wrap. Oh, go ahead.
We do have one more question that I wanted to hit actually, and then one of my own. Carrie wants to know: have you ever been flattened by a player?
I knew that was coming. I thought that was going to come beforehand, but it's like
I know the answer.
I've come close a couple of times, right? And my thing is, it's like I will give up a shot in a minute and get out of the way, because if I'm on the sideline and the play's coming over here, you have to be attentive enough to say, okay, if you got the camera up and they're coming, at some point you got to bail, right? Because I don't want to get run over. Those guys are 250 pounds, 270, 300. They got pads on and they could lift a car. So it's kind of like, it's like you got to learn how to get out of the way. And you got to if you're at the corner, you got to position yourself. If you're kneeling down, it's like, okay, one knee down to have one leg ready to push up and go. Right now, one time we were playing the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, they were backed up in the end zone, towards the end zone, about the 3-yard line. Right. So our defense came in. I was down low on the ground, shooting my low angle with the low angle finder, right? And he goes back. They're chasing him. They hit him. I'm taking a shot, and literally I raise up, and I couldn't move, and he landed right in front of me and didn't hit me. It was like, I was like a deer in a headlight. So I've come close. Yeah.
All right, good.
Don't jinx me though.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly you love photographing football and you love football. What's your next favorite sport or that you enjoy photographing?
Ooh, shoot. Let's see. Next favorite, I would say, I say basketball. Mm-hmm. I really like basketball a lot, to be honest. Baseball. Oh man, you got to have some. I'll shoot any sport, but you got to have some patience for baseball. Let me tell you, because you can sit there and fall asleep a little bit. So,
what about the bowling? I mean, you were a bowler, but imagine photographing bowling.
I think I'm over that one there. But one thing I do like the collegiate sports stuff. And I do like photographing track and field as well. Like I say, I learned how to shoot gymnastics. I like swimming though. I like shooting that. That's kind of neat too as well. But it works out well from teaching wise too, and looking at lighting and helping photographers understand what's going on. It's kind of like you're only limited to where you can go from a pool area without falling in. Because I tell swimmers sometimes, I say, if I fall in the pool, save the cameras first, then come down and get me because I can't swim.
Oh
Good.
man.
Good.
Well, hey, Terrell, I am going to put you on the spot. I mentioned it earlier, but now we've reconnected, man. We definitely, we need to sometime get you on a tour when it's off season so you can hang with us, be a guest instructor, go somewhere awesome with us. Hopefully we're going to be doing some of that again soon. Bodie, actually, Toby's going to be leading a couple tours in Bodie coming up in July. We've been given the green light. But one of these world places would be great. Love to have you join us. Yeah. But we'd absolutely be thrilled to partner with you and do like a sports workshop or something. I don't know what we can do to make that happen, but I think that would be phenomenal to have somebody your caliber teaching some of these folks, and we can definitely figure that out if you're willing.
Oh yeah, I would love. Now you guys done safaris and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, we Tanzania a lot, man. Africa. So
great place to bring along those 400 and 600.
Yeah. So you can handle that one in the vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, we use bean bags, man. We have bean bags on the vehicle because we're doing this, and so that helps, And then of course we have the Arctic and the Antarctic. So the Arctic, you've got polar bears, and the Antarctic, we got penguins, which they'll come right up to you. Yeah. But man, we'll get you out on one of these. We'd love to have you out on one of these, man.
Yeah. Nice.
Very cool.
So
right.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Tony.
I was just going to say, we're going to start to wrap it up. And Terrell, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been an awesome discussion.
Well, thanks.
If I had to sum it up, I'd say have a good attitude and work hard, but you said it much more eloquently. And so I really appreciate you spending some time chatting with us.
Well, thanks. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Great, meeting you, Toby, and great seeing you, Allie, and David. I mean, it's been a pleasure. I hope your audience, gravitated to the story and stuff like that. I mean, I like to talk. I like to tell stories a little bit, but most of all, I like to inspire people for their passion of what they do. Right. I mean, I believe my career is from bowling out on a Pro Bowlers Tour to working in high tech in Silicon Valley to what I do with the 49ers. I've had, 3 careers that have been fulfilling. Right. And it's like, what they say, what's the saying? Like, you never worked a day in your life if I'm losing the saying, but it's like, it doesn't seem like a job to me. Yeah. Right. For what I get to do. Right. Mm-hmm. And I drive up to that stadium at Levi Stadium in the 49er organization. And I'm like, wow, how did I get here? And I say that still 25 years later, how did I get here?
Yeah. So, that's great. That's great. Awesome. Well, we really appreciate it. Folks watching, just give it a thumbs up so people know this was well worth people's time and they should watch. And if you're not already a subscriber, you should hit subscribe. And of course, I've got Terrell's contact information, website, and Instagram right down below this video. So if you'd like to give him a follow and see what he's up to when we get back to football and how you're keeping yourself busy during this time as well, you can do that all right down below.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
And we will be back. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.